popular players in the world hadn't been matched in years. In this episode of Storytime with Shaq, Bro Parrish talks to Diesel about that game and his relationship with Yao throughout their careers.
Tonight, the Rockets doing battle with the Los Angeles Lakers, and it's not just a game, it's a happening. I'm telling you folks, everybody who is anybody in the Houston area or in Texas is here tonight to see this battle. It's the first matchup ever between Yao Ming and Shaquille O'Neal.
What do you remember when you're first stepping in the circle with Yao Ming the first time you two played each other?
Knew nothing about him. Knew he was 7'5", 7'8", so you know, we got to Houston and Yao Ming, Yao Ming, Yao Ming, Yao Ming, Yao, I'm like, okay, they're trying to do like Rocky IV, Apollo Creed, all this and that. They want to give him the fanfare. So I said, okay. So, I wanted to give him a little finesse. I wanted to show him I was smooth. So I get on the post, and I go right there. He blocks it. Crowd go crazy. Well, you got that one. You 7'8", you're supposed to block it. Get another move. He blocks it. Third time he blocks it. Now I'm mad. Now I got to go in the playoff mode. Now I got to turn the power, turn it all the way up. It's the first time I got my shot blocked 3 times in a row. But what gave me the super confidence is, hey, you done killed Patrick Ewing. You done killed David Robinson. You neck and neck with your favorite player, Hakeem Olajuwon. He's a young kid. Turn it up. Go into that mode. But it was definitely a fun battle between me and him. Definitely respect him. Definitely respect his culture. I go to China 5-6 times a year. Whenever I'm in Shanghai, we always have tea. We always have great conversation. I just wish that he didn't have those injuries that he had. I would have loved to have more battles with him. He's probably the only guy that really tested me. And he tested me because he was 7'8", and he was hard to move. He couldn't stop me, but guess what? I couldn't stop him either. I put him in the category of a king. Like, hey, King, you can't stop me, but I know I can't stop that fadeaway. And he was the only guy that would catch it in the post and look at me. He just looked like y'all just look at me, and then I'd come and try to block, and he just shoot right over me. Whoop! I'd be like, damn. But the funny thing, the first couple of times I'm China, language barrier, I never knew he spoke English. So one day I hit him with a nice bing bing on the baseline. Ha ha! Shot the boom. He's like, nice move, brother. I was like, you talk English? He's like, yeah, I talk English. I was like, why you didn't tell me? He said, Shaq, you never talked to me. I was like, man. So after that moment, like, we really became close.
Shaq, every game we played remind me of the old saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Thank you for that.
And I was honored to be on the same stage as him during Hall of Fame weekend. When you talk about the history of basketball, long after we're gone, hopefully this conversation will still be around when East meets West.
Cool moment during that Hall of Fame ceremony. You actually got to put the jacket on him. He was struggling. What happened exactly when he was trying to put on his jacket?
Well, he's a big dude, and when you get really big and you get older, you start to get stiff like a tree. So I'm sure his shoulders are kind of banged up a little bit. So I said, let me help you out, brother. But he's the only dude that makes me feel small. They say he's 7'6", but he's like my favorite convenience store. He's 7-Eleven all day. He's 7-Eleven.
Talk about his impact globally just on the game of basketball.
He's done a lot for China. He's done a lot for the game of international basketball. And, I don't think there's anybody bigger or better that could have done the job. When I go to China, everybody mentions Yao Ming. It's like a god over there.
It's incredible to see a guy half a foot taller than Shaq. Brendan, you played against Yao as well. What was it like? You're a 7-footer. The first time you step on a court with a guy half a foot taller than you when you're used to being half a foot taller than everybody else.
It was incredibly different for me because I'm used to being taller than everybody else, or at least being eye level. And with Yao Ming, it was something different. He was so tall. He had a height advantage. And something that was weird to me was I literally could not see the ball coming up the court when I was behind him. So like guys would be like, why didn't you call it the scrim? Like, I couldn't see you. I really couldn't see him. And so Yao presented a lot of challenges, especially trying to guard him. He had some very good moves. He had counters. He had spins. He had some step backs. Did I make that? Okay, I got a couple of highlights off on Yao, but For the most part, it was very hard for me to guard Yao Ming because he really didn't have to jump much, and he kept the ball high. If you really watch Yao in his highlights, he just has that ball and he's moving it here, and you respond to his fake so much because he keeps the ball high. He's incredibly tall. He was very skilled, and he had a lot of stuff in his game, and Jeff Van Gundy did an excellent job of what I would call using weak side duck-in, something that we don't use nowadays in the game of basketball, where they would run a screen and roll on this side of the court with Tracy McGrady. And I would have to respond and come off of Yao's body. And then he would just duck in that lane and get big and catch the ball. And there was nothing I could do a lot of times. Playing against Yao was very challenging.
Griff, when you look at someone like Yao Ming and you think of his career, and it was a great career, but cut short due to injuries, how great could he have been if he would have stayed healthy?
Yeah, and I think about how good that Houston Rockets team could have been. They had the 07 team, I think, won 22 games in a row with T-Mac and Yao. And both of those guys had really significant injuries. I think that year only one of them was able to play even 60 games. I think Yao played 66 maybe. T-Mac may have played like 55. But they weren't ever able to stay on the court together. But when they did, they were so truly elite. We were really robbed of seeing the best of that team as well. The other thing that really stands out to me is when the legend of Yao was being told by Shaq, Yao will have been 8'3". He started at 7'6", and he called him 7'11" by the end.
That is pretty funny. I mean, I guess for Shaq, he's not used to looking up, so then he just adds inches to that, right? Well, that's a former Rocket great. The ascension up the MVP ladder for current Rocket. We'll tell you who's moving on up. I think you know who it is. That's up next. MVP candidates meeting in Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo for the Milwaukee Bucks, and Kawhi Leonard, cool, calm, and collected for the Toronto Raptors. And the team with the most wins will take on the team with the overall best record in the NBA right here on NBA TV in just over 30 minutes. Welcome to the Auto Trader pregame show. Chris Miles here with Brendan Haywood, David Griffin. Griff, when you see this graphic we have coming up, don't get too excited, all right? Because as our resident GM, we know when you put together a roster, you love to see advanced stats like the ones you're looking at right here. Milwaukee Bucks taking leaps in offensive rating, defensive rating, overall net rating. Griff, how much credit goes to roster construction, your area of expertise, or elite coaching? Mike Budenholzer.
Well, I think it's both, and that's what makes this team so dangerous. Mike is exactly the right fit. You know, we've called it the buttification of the Milwaukee Bucks. He's exactly the right fit for their personnel. The acquisition John Horst made of Brook Lopez to open the floor up for Giannis has been absolutely critical. They actually doubled down on that idea when they brought in George Hill and added Jason Smith as well as part of that. They wanted to be able to always keep a floor spacing 5 on the floor. The George Hill acquisition giving them another defensive guard, somebody else that can make shots spacing off of Giannis. They've gone all in on building this team in the vision Mike Budenholzer had for it. And they're doing everything that Atlanta did stylistically when Bud was there. They just have enough talent now to do it at a level very few teams have ever reached.
This is what happens when you have a front office and a head coach on the exact same page. The front office goes out there and gets the perfect players for this coach's system. They work in unison, and guess what? You look out on the court, and it's a beautiful product. In Atlanta, you're right, Coach Bud tried to do the exact same things, and it worked to a certain degree. He had a 60-win season. He had the pieces, and they looked very good. The problem was, and not really the problem, what makes this situation different is that he now actually has an elite player on his team running this system. In Atlanta, you had Al Horford, you had Millsap. Those guys were great players, but they couldn't get you over the hump against a guy like LeBron. Now you're seeing this system run with somebody like Greek Freak, who's arguably one of the top 5 players in the league, and looks a lot different just because he offers a different dynamic.
Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver, also all-stars on that team. As you mentioned, it was a squad that was very deep here in Atlanta, but the Raptors, on the other side, 6-4 without Kyle Lowry this season. He's out again tonight. Brendan, when you look at who they are, and you know how good Kawhi Leonard has been, how much of a step back do they take when Kyle Lowry is out, especially in a game like this against the Milwaukee Bucks and against elite teams like this?
Well, I think when you lose Kyle Lowry, you lose a lot of things. You lose some defensive intensity. You lose a lot of leadership. You lose his vision. This year he's averaging a career high for him, 10 assists. So you lose a lot of different things in that aspect, his competitiveness. And not only that, when Kyle Lowry isn't playing, it hurts your depth. I think Van Vliet is one of the top subs in the game at the point guard position.
Good point.
But now when he's forced to start, it forces you to get a little bit deeper into your bench. You're not quite as deep. And that all has a cumulative effect on your team and how you're playing. So Toronto is a very good team, but they're definitely much better with Kyle Lowry.
They're 5-5 in their last 10. All 5 of the losses have come on the road. I think where you really notice Kyle's absence is on the defensive side of the ball. In that span, they're giving up 112.9 points per 100 possessions. It's very uncharacteristic of that Raptors team, and it's because of what they lose on the defensive side of the ball with Kyle at the point of attack. It's a really big loss for him, or for them rather, what they lose on the defensive side.
When you look at what Kawhi Leonard's doing offensively, first time in his career where he's had 15 consecutive games scoring over 20 points, how much of that is the symbiotic relationship he now has with Pascal Siakam? Because those two seem to be working perfectly well.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I also think that one of the reasons he was playing at such a high level from the very beginning is that this is a 59-win team who was built to win basketball games, and you added a Kawhi Leonard who's a #1 on a championship caliber team. You add Danny Green, who's a championship caliber, championship winning role player. All of the pieces fit. You know, we said it about Milwaukee, and Toronto was very similar in this way. And again, when Kyle Lowry plays, they're just so much better defensively. That gets them out in transition. Siakam pushing tempo for them, and Leonard benefiting from that.
I love Kawhi Leonard for this team, and the one thing is everybody's like, wow, Kawhi has made them so much better. In the regular season, that is actually not true. They're at the same winning pace they were on last year when they had DeMar DeRozan. I think Kawhi offers this team a different level of hope when you get into the playoffs right now, because the team will be a little bit more confident. First of all, LeBron James is no longer there. And second of all, you have Kawhi, who is regarded as one of the top players in the league also, a great two-way guy who offers you a little bit more versatility than DeMar. But right now, the team is playing well, but I can't say that because Kawhi is here, they're markedly better in the regular season, because that's actually not true.
And we got to give a lot of credit to Nick Nurse stepping in his first year as head coach for the Toronto Raptors with so many injuries that he's dealt with. Jonas Valanciunas, Kyle Lowry, and, of course, Kawhi Leonard sitting out the second night of back-to-backs a lot this year. They've done a good job. Most wins so far this season in the NBA, the Toronto Raptors. Big game tonight coming up. Round 3 between Milwaukee and Toronto. The first 2 games between these two teams felt like a heavyweight championship. Will tonight feel the same way? Let's welcome in Matt Velasquez from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel for more insight. Bucks became the first team in NBA history to have 12 different players score 8 or more points in Friday night's win. What does that tell you about the depth of this team?
I mean, the Bucks just have a lot of guys who can fill in, put the ball in the bucket, and do it in a lot of different ways. I mean, they were throwing out kind of weird combinations. Obviously, when you get up by as many as 46, you're trying to, keep everybody fresh for the back-to-back and throw different players out there. But no matter who they put out there and what the combinations they had, guys were moving the ball well, trusting each other, and finding ways to score. And so, that deep level of trust, being able to translate up and down the lineup, is definitely a positive for Milwaukee so far this season.
It's one thing for that to happen in a blowout win, but a lot of teams rely on their best player to take the last shot at the end of close games. With the Bucks, we've seen that's not always the case. Outside of Giannis, who does this team have the most trust in taking a late-game shot?
I think if it's a last shot of the game, especially if they need a 3, you'd probably see the ball in Chris Middleton's hands. They've done that a couple times so far this year. If it's crunch time and they need somebody to create something off the dribble, then you might see the ball in Eric Bledsoe's hands, maybe running a pick and roll with Giannis, and then kind of creating off that. He had a bunch of games early in the season where he was doing some things in the last few minutes of close games to help them close it out. But Giannis is still a pretty good closer in his own right. He's shooting a high percentage in those crunch time minutes, getting a lot of dunks, getting to the free throw line. And, in recent games, he's put down some jumpers, too. So they have a lot of options, and you can never count out, obviously, Brook Lopez, chucking up 30-footers and kind of cutting teams deep with those shots.
There are so many positive stats surrounding this team right now, but the one that matters most, they've won 9 of their last 10, approaching the halfway point of the season. Are they all starting to feel some of the weight of raised expectations because they seem to be playing loose?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think they're really affected by that. I think they've really kind of hunkered down and kind of get that game at a time mentality, as cliche as it might be. I think it kind of helps that we're here in Milwaukee. This is a smaller market. This isn't New York. It's not LA. It's not Chicago or Golden State or any of those other places where maybe the microscope would be a little bit more heated. But for them, they're just kind of playing loose, having fun, doing what they've been doing all season, and just kind of rolling as the wins come through.
And it looks like that train is just going to roll through the season. Matt Velasquez, appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
Well, Philadelphia will take the court at 7:30. Jimmy Butler will not be on it. What are we going to learn about Ben Simmons and company against the Dallas Mavericks? We chop it up next.
Think he shoots a three tonight?
No chance.